going to start with just the most vulgar example of leftism, supporting imperialism. And that is the great Jabba the Vaush. Wah, 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 wah. Russia's imperialist. Rah, rah, rah. I love the SS battalion. Rah, 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 rah. Rah, 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 rah. I mean, we're going to talk about the great Jabba the Vaush. We got two clips of here. I'm sorry to have to do this to you, to show you clips of Vaush. We've got two very short clips here. And this shows you, one, how Vaush thinks, which is probably the most important thing. Two, how Vaush lies and how he's inaccurate. And three, where we're at. I mean, this is the guy who's been propped up as the voice of socialism. They've had him on the Hill, Hill Rising. They've had him on there, Rising the Hill. They've had him on that show with Crystal Ball, and now it's Kim Iverson who's on there. And thank you very much, Gordon Osterhage. This guy, they're trying to make him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in Congress someday. I mean, that's how serious. And this is the level of intellectual depth that the pro-imperialist socialist Jabba the Vaush, Beverly Hills child of rich Hollywood parents who supports the Azov Battalion and has a history of strange comments about child pornography. This is him talking about our conference. Two clips of him. The first one I'm going to show you. This is Vaush. He plays a clip from my speech at the conference that someone audio recorded. Somebody who came to the conference audio recorded it. And he plays the clip of me talking and reacts to it. And I want you to pay very close attention to how this goes, right? MLK Memorial made in China. I don't know anything about that. MLK Memorial made in China. All right, writing it down. But this is the first clip. And I want you to see here. This will show you how Vaush thinks, because this is very telling. This is Vaush reacting to a clip from my opening remarks at the conference.
This here, man. Oh, do we have a...
of the global capitalist...
Here we go. We have Burger King himself with just some audio, I suppose.
Of the global capitalist system. And they did this by organizing the economy to serve public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. In the 1990s, when the Soviet Union fell, the USA loved Russia. Russia's economy was in collapse, and people were starving. Boris Yeltsin was Bill Clinton's buddy, and the USA meddled in the 1996 elections to make sure that Yeltsin got reelected, as he was wrecking the country with austerity and shock therapy neoliberal economics. Directed, of course, by George Soros.
Now, keep in mind, everything I said up until then is documented fact. The USA did meddle in the elections in Russia. Russia's economy was devastated by shock therapy economics. The USA did, work with Boris Yeltsin and wreck their economy. Everything I said up until that point is really relevant in U.S. geopolitics and what's going on with Russia. Keep that in mind. But he just sits there and nods because he doesn't know anything about that. But then I said the magic words, George Soros. Listen to this.
But things in Russia...
Dude, I'm so glad George Soros exists, because it's such an easy fucking Nazi like radar for everyone else. It's literally just the JQ. So just so you guys know, like, George Soros is a relatively politically active billionaire. Like, he's on the Democrat side. He's, I guess, relatively progressive. But, like, the progressivism of George Soros is like Hillary Clinton tier progressivism. And he's not the only billionaire that does this. There are hundreds of billionaires.
Now, you see that? That tells you everything you need to know about Vaush. I was on there talking about actual events that happened, like shock therapy economics destroying Russia's economy, like the USA meddling in the Russian elections in 1996 to get Boris Yeltsin reelected, like Bill Clinton being the buddy of Boris Yeltsin and the USA getting along with Russia fine as long as their economy was in collapse and people were starving. I'm talking about actual facts. But then I said another actual fact, which is that George Soros was heavily involved. And immediately he just goes to answer 27B. Well, folks, I have a book here in front of you. This is a best-selling book, not a right-wing book, not a book by a right-winger. This is by Naomi Klein, a leftist, a New York Times best-selling book called The Shock Doctrine. This is about the imposition of free market neoliberal economics around the world during the 1990s. And this is what it says. Quote, Sachs' work in Poland had begun before Solidarity's election victory at the request of the communist government. It started with a one-day trip in which he met with the communist government and with Solidarity. It was George Soros, the billionaire financier and currency trader, who had enlisted Sachs to play a more hands-on role. Soros and Sachs traveled to Warsaw together, and as Sachs recalls, I told the Solidarity Group and the Polish government I'd be willing to become more involved to help address the deepening crisis. Soros agreed to cover the costs for Sachs and his colleague David Lipton, a staunch free marketeer economist, then working at the IMF to set up the ongoing mission in Poland. That's not all. Page 296. It gets better. It gets better. It gets better. George Soros' philanthropic work in Eastern Europe, including his funding of Sachs travel throughout the region, has not been immune to controversy. There is no doubt that Soros was committed to the cause of democratization of the Eastern Bloc, but he also had clear economic interests in the economic reform accompanying democratization. As the world's most powerful currency trader, he stood to benefit greatly when countries implemented convertible currencies and lifted capital controls, and when state companies were put on the auction block. That George Soros's role in wrecking the Eastern Bloc is documented fact. I didn't mention George Soros because I'm anti-Semitic. I didn't mention George Soros because he's a Democrat and Democrats are communists. I mentioned George Soros because George Soros was heavily involved in financing Jeffrey Sachs to go across Eastern Europe, implementing free market reforms and wrecking the economy. Vaush doesn't know that because Vaush is a fucking idiot. All Vaush knows is Soros is a thing that right-wingers say. And so if anyone says Soros, they are anti-Semitic. Oh, he said Soros, he right-wing. Soros right-wing. Soros Democrat. He hate Democrat. He hates Soros because Soros Jew. He knows none of this. This is a very widely read book. This is a very, very widely read book, The Shock Doctrine. Naomi Klein is a member, I believe, of Democratic Socialists of America. And this is where I learned about George Soros and Jeffrey Sachs and David Lipton's role in the fall of the Soviet Union. I am talking about a well-documented fact that anyone familiar with the fall of the Soviet Union and economics would know about. But John the Vaush doesn't know about it. He just knows that George Soros is bad. George Soros is bad. Anyone who mentions George Soros is anti-Semitic. Why would he mention Soros? There's so many other liberal billionaires. I'm not talking about George Soros in the United States, you idiot. I'm talking about George Soros and the role he played in Eastern Europe. I'm talking about something that all kinds of progressives talk about. Don't just read this book. Read Europe Since 1989 by Philip Thayer. The role of George Soros in rolling back socialism in Eastern Europe, in pushing free market reforms that wrecked the economy of Russia, wrecked the economy of Poland, wrecked the economy of Ukraine, wrecked the economy of Czechoslovakia, is a well-documented fact. But Vaush doesn't know anything about economics. He just knows there are these people called right-wingers, and they're bad. And my job is to get on the internet and attack them. And if anyone doesn't support war with Russia, they're a right-winger. Rah, 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 rah. He's a fucking idiot, okay? He is a fucking idiot. And that clip right there is the best proof of it you have ever seen. I actually know who George Soros is. He doesn't. He knows George Soros is a rich guy who donates to Democrats. I, on the other hand, know that George Soros is a Hungarian-born billionaire who was key in working with the CIA to funnel money to color revolutions and CIA-led protests to bring down socialism in Eastern Europe. That's what I know. I know about who George Soros is. I've studied this stuff. Vaush hasn't. He just has a list of things you're not allowed to say. There's a list of things you're not allowed to say. If anyone says this, that means they right-wing, they bad. Vaush, did Caleb say George Soros? Anyone who says George Soros, bad. This guy is an idiot. Look at that clip. And no one should ever listen to Vaush about anything again. He knows absolutely nothing about what he's talking about. If what Vaush said in that clip is an accurate analysis of what I said, then Naomi Klein is an anti-Semite. That's basically Vaush, according to Vaush, Naomi Klein, the author of this book, The Shock Doctrine, that documents the role of George Soros in the economic demolition of Russia during the 1990s. According to Vaush, Naomi Klein is a Nazi. Because the only reason, did you hear him on there? The only reason anyone ever mentions George Soros is the JQ. No, we're talking about facts. We are talking about facts. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I'm sitting there talking about shock therapy economics. I'm sitting there talking about real, actual facts. And he's just like, oh, he said George Soros. That means, I mean, that alone should be enough for you to dismiss him. But I got another one. And this one, I'm going to stop it halfway. Well, no, I think we'll just watch the whole thing just to show you what he's all about. So let's just go ahead. All right, this is the next one. He's showing.
Okay, are there more than 40 people in this room? I hope they were charging $800 a ticket, because there's no other way. I know whoever filmed this was a fan of mine, because while filming this incredibly embarrassing shit, they zoom in on Burger King and Peter Coffin, you know? I can't believe this. Are they not? Oh, damn, I'm almost disappointed. Well, maybe they just edited it. That is so funny. This is like the highlight of their lives. Jesus. They look so dorky, dude. Holy shit. Haas is dating Samira Khan. Oh, base.
Okay, now listen to that clip. Now, keep in mind, so there was somebody who came into the conference, and they were there at the very, very end. I mean, it was almost midnight at the very end. And yeah, towards the end, after the Q&A was over, after people were kind of getting up during the Q&A, people had been there since 1 p.m. It was almost midnight. It got a little bit smaller towards the end of the day. So based on this clip of something at the end of the day, he's trying to say, oh, were there even more than 40 people there? Well, there were well over 100 people there, according to a number of people who counted. Jackson Hinkle was saying 120. So, you know, if you add up, you know, I think we counted a certain number of people who came in, but then if you add all the speakers and all the volunteers and all the security guards, it was well over 100 people that were there. But you'll notice that that's his only reaction to this. It's like, oh, they look dorky with the flags. And then from there he goes to Haas is dating Samira Khan. This guy is a fucking high school idiot. He can't understand politics with any level of depth whatsoever. None. So all he's got is like, oh, there are even 40 people there, and look, they're carrying flags, and oh, look, Samira and Haas are dating. I mean, it's like his life is an episode of Beverly Hills 90210. That's how smart this man is. Yeah, let's watch the opening of the conference. Let's see. You think there's more than 40 people here?
All beliefs.
I don't know. Is that
all
more than
races,
40 people
all colors,
taking the
all
Pledge of Unity?
nationalities, all beliefs.
Is that more than 40 people? More than 40 people?
To
I don't know.
eliminate
That
all
room looks like
traces
it has
of
more than
fascism
40
from
people
the
in it.
earth.
Bosh.
Please remain standing
He's
for
just
the
a lying
international
sack of
Parliament
shit.
of
Look at
USA.
this. Look at this. Look at this, right? Look at this, right? You know, people standing. I mean, that is all you should ever listen. Look at that room. There are more than 40 people in the room. I think there is. But who cares, right? Let's just focus on who's dating who right now. Let's focus on the high school drama. Let's focus on who's dating who and all of that. Vaush is a neocon. Absolutely, Vaush is a neocon. So I just had to get that out of my system. If you are somebody who is triggered by Vaush, you can turn the stream back on now. The Vaush stuff is over. Job of the Vaush has left the building. But I just wanted to show you that is the level of discourse. He literally has no clue about what happened when the Soviet Union fell and that George Soros had a role in it. He just knows George Soros is a thing the right-wingers say. And then his other reaction is like, they're like dorks, man. They got like flags and who's dating who? Oh my God, someone's dating so-and-so. I mean, it's this guy, his like brain stopped developing when he was 15 years old. Okay. He sits around playing video games all day. I mean, this guy is a man-child who knows nothing about Marxism, and people are turning to him to educate people about the most important ideology that basically defined the 20th century. So if you can't understand why it makes me angry that people listen to this troll, this creep, this Hollywood fail son, you just saw that's his analysis of our conference, that I said George Soros and I must be a stupid Republican, and that we're dorky because we carried flags, and that someone's dating somebody, which I don't even know for a fact is true. I was there. I talked to both of them. I had no knowledge of any relationship, but then who knows? Whatever. That's not the point, right? I mean, there's real politics here, real economics. He doesn't know any of that. So why would you listen to him? That is my question to you. Why in the world would you listen to him? I just wanted to get that out of the way.